The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen.
We are now about to witness the truth.
Hey everybody, we're back. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I'm Anoa and I'm with Brandon. Brandon's going to take the lead tonight.
Thanks for telling me right now, Anoa.
Apologies.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. You know,
BS.
No, anyone who watches the show knows I love to talk, so I'm sure I will do my best. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon, and I'm joined by the dubiously named Anoa Changa, Esquire, and our producer in the back, David Grossman. I just told them your full name, David, so now I know where to find you. Today we're going to have a bit of a discussion about the goings on with David Brock, the Trump cabinet confirmation hearings, and a little bit more about Trump's little bathroom humor. But I do want to talk a little bit more about that. I do, because we made a lot of jokes about it yesterday, but this is indicative of a bigger problem, and that is that I think for the first time in history, well, not in history, but at least in my life, we have a president in the intelligence community that is invisible conflict. So we have Trump, who today at his press conference compared the intelligence community to Nazis. And I think it's fair to say, Rand Paul, who did great today, by the way. Rand Paul did great today. Rand Paul came out and basically hinted that the intelligence community is using the specter of these leaks, these unverified leaks that were brought up to literally put pressure on Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, finish. Go ahead. It's fine.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that's a really good point. And this dossier, this report or whatever, which is unverified, most of the information has not been corroborated. In fact, there is a post, I shared it earlier. There's a post, 4chan trolls are claiming that at least parts of it is fan fiction written by them. I mean, but we haven't seen this at least in recent years. Excuse me. We haven't seen this, like you said, this very openly hostile relationship between the intelligence community and the incoming president. It has not been like this in recent years, and it's interesting. I don't know what other way to put it, but it does pose a suggestion. And I had an interview earlier this evening with Sam Sachs, and one thing that he pointed out was that we've had for months people talking about this Russia narrative, and that Trump is dangerous because you never know what Russia might have on Trump or this, that, and the other. He's like, this report in all its unsubstantiated wonder or whatever has been circulating around the who's who of Washington elite, the who's who of Washington politicos and journalists for months now. So people have seen this. People have had this kind of in the back of their brain anytime they broach the subject about Trump and Russia, and here we are now. So it's definitely interesting and worth a conversation.
It's worth a bigger conversation than simply focusing on the more scandalous elements of it, which is the peeing and the Russian prostitutes. I don't care about that stuff. I don't. I'm not in a place to kink shame anybody. I'm not going to be a hypocrite, and I'm not going to bring up my own sex life, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite and think that disqualifies him. Insofar that the Republican Party is the party of family values, it's not. That's always been a joke. I think people are kind of, using that excuse. But what is a problem, also problematic about this report is that you have Democrats. Chuck Schumer was a good example. He also raised this notion I think maybe a few weeks ago at least, that the intelligence community is being openly hostile to the incoming president. And he broached it in a way, unlike Rand Paul, who suggested that this was whoever leaked this unverified intelligence dossier to Trump should be, in prison. They should be, they should face consequences, legal consequences. We now have Democrats like Chuck Schumer and I can't think of any other senators, but we definitely have Democrats, people on the left, or not. I'm sorry, I keep saying the left. They're not on the left. We have Democrats, elite Democrats, who are aligning themselves with the deep state. It's the same deep state that they were blaming for Obama's inability to get anything done. There's this same mission creep, the same deep state whose mission creep, institutional inertia kept us from getting, kept the war machine going, and it was never Obama's fault. Now we have Democrats who are aligning themselves with this. Like that is so, like, there is no one who is trying to check. Now there is no one who is trying to check this spy apparatus that has, 15 years ago now, got us into an illegal war. And before that, it was, what did we learn from the Church Committee? Like, what did we learn from COINTELPRO? What did we learn from what did we learn about the veracity of the intelligence community and the way they operate? All the lessons of the past are going away because now, well, hey, they don't like Trump either, so that must mean they're friends. And it's very problematic. It's very problematic that people on the left are, people who espouse that they're on the left. I know I upset people. I say Democrats on the left, but that they are aligning themselves with this war machine, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I agree. And there is a sense of that, and I talked about this earlier with Sam, that, it's just a free for all, right? It's like, you got a story, you got something in on this, you're going to come and, do something that's furthering this narrative. It doesn't even matter. We don't got to check your credentials. We don't got to, check your sources, the veracity of the statements you made. Just pile it all in, because it's just like they're just throwing stuff to make something stick finally. But yeah, like I agree though, like the intelligence community, and even when you go back to the report that was released last weekend, that report, it's like, okay, high confidence, moderate confidence. And we really start thinking about like what things mean and what they're actually saying, particularly when we're talking about a report that is about cyber hacking that almost exclusively focuses on a television network, right?
Oh yeah,
and programming that is several years old that could not have actually had any actual basic. That's one thing that Sam worked for RT back in 2012. And that's one thing that he pointed out, was that a lot of the data information is actually several years old that they were relying on in that report. And he's like, we're talking about 3% of viewership in comparison to, many other networks. But by all means, come on, let's blame the little guy.
There was nothing substantial in those reports. I think anyone who read those reports and didn't read secondhand information about those reports can see that there was nothing of merit, and the language in them was purposely obtuse, purposefully vague. It was 25 pages long. 2 of them were blank. 7 of them were copy and pasted from an early report. A bunch of them were another page was just a detailed schematic for how do you interpret the language we're going to use here, the very vague language. But I think most people are just going to read the secondhand articles. They're going to say, well, my senator thinks that it happened in Russia, but Bernie Sanders also believes this. So it comes back to sort of people are getting their knowledge secondhand, and they're not actually going to the report and reading the report. On the other hand, it comes like the BuzzFeed, like if you watch the confirmation hearings today, if you actually watched them, they were, well, first of all, let's start with the confirmation hearings. Who do you want to start with first? Where should we start?
I mean, we can start with Tillerson. I mean, because Tillerson started today, even though session started yesterday, we can start with Tillerson.
I will say this though: if BuzzFeed is going to start publishing fan fiction, I'm going to send them some stuff I've been working on.
And it's so funny. I was just thinking, like a couple of days ago, I was like, "Oh, we need PA fan fiction." But please, if we start doing PA fan fiction, don't have me defecating or peeing anyone or anyone doing such things on me. Like let's just leave that all out of
my Harry Potter fan fiction is on point, like 100%, 100%.
You have Harry Potter fan fiction.
Let's start with Tillerson. Let's start with Tillerson. So I think it's safe to say that when it came to Tillerson, everyone embarrassed themselves except for Rand Paul and to a certain extent Cory Booker. Marco Rubio, Markey from Senator Markey from Massachusetts, Merkley, was Merkley there too? Yeah, they kept pushing this sort of to more or less extent this sort of these conspiracy theories about Russia. Like it became the Russia story again, where contrary to that, Rand Paul actually brought up things that matter. Rand Paul actually brought up, well, what was your opinion about the Iraq War, and like, why has your opinion changed? Cory Booker, since he's decided to run for president in 2020, like went in hard. This is Cory Booker proving that he is able to run for president, and that's fine. I will say this though, it really doesn't take anything, and this is the lesson to take away from. I know a lot of people are so proud of Cory Booker and so proud of these senators who are standing up to Tillerson and standing up to, well, not really Tillerson so much, but standing up to specifically Jeff Sessions. People like John Lewis, right. Black Caucus. Counterintuitively, it actually doesn't take much to stand up to monsters. At least in politics, it doesn't take much to stand up to Trump and Jeff Sessions, because Jeff Sessions is kind of a monster. Trump is kind of a monster in a very overt way. And I know they're like, Cory Booker is cutting his teeth trying to get his progressive bona fides by like holding Sessions' feet to the fire. That's great. But where is he going to be a few months from now? I'm not a few months from now, next week, or actually, where DeVos, I've never heard her name pronounced out loud.
Betsy DeVos. Yeah,
Betsy DeVos is going up for confirmation. Like, where is he going to be then? Because we know what her position is on issues of education, and we know that she is woefully. Well, she's going to privatize everything. That's what she's going to try to do. Yeah. Same with Elaine Chao, who also kind of cruised through, and people are like, well, she has this very, very problematic rhetoric on privatization. And so it comes back to the same thing we always talk about here, that our senators, our government are very good at taking these symbolic stances, these performative stances where they stand up to like the monster, they stand up to the excesses of the system. But when it comes down to it, they're like they have no backbone to actually stand up to like the actual problematic elements of it. They don't want to stand up to privatization. They don't want to stand up to Wall Street. They don't want to stand up to any of these things. Or let's go back to Tillerson. His position on climate change was so problematic, like so absolutely problematic here.
Like I just from what I saw, just from like I said again, talking with Sam earlier, from listening to you recount now, like just the fact that this whole Russia thing again, right, has taken such precedence, considering all the things that are going on right now, considering, and I do understand the concern, but just even thinking about Tillerson's like potential conflicts and business ties. I just saw an article earlier that was saying that, ExxonMobil, like there's some type of loophole and he really didn't actually sever ties completely the way, he was supposed to. There's just so many issues that are like really pressing matters that need to be addressed. And it's just like, nope, Russia, because this is what we're going to ask about until we get into the real issues. We have things like pressing matters that could be considered, that should be considered, that it takes forever before we get to anything, whether it's climate change or whatever the case may be, as a real serious focus while we're in this confirmation hearing. And the level of softballing that has been involved as well is problematic. I mean, how can you proclaim that we have to resist Trump and this, that, and the other, and yet and still we're gonna be polite and do unto others as you have them do to you? And it's just like that. This is how Democrats continue to lose. Like, this is why Democrats continue to lose, because people will buy out from underneath you. They will do what they need to do. They don't care about, oh, my turn, your turn, sharing and caring. Nah, Republicans are in this to win it. And until Democrats and those who align with them understand that and actually begin to start making changes accordingly, they're going to continue to lose.
Well, Democratic Party, I don't really want to get into the bipartisanship of this whole thing because, still on Tillerson. Tillerson's response as someone who worked at Exxon for 42 years. He's only ever worked at Exxon. And his response to climate change is so incredibly problematic insofar that he recognizes that it's a thing, kind of, unlike the appointees for the EPA, the EPA, which, hey, whatever. But he doesn't think it can be fought. He doesn't think it can be fought with man-made technology. He says that we're unsure. Climate science is unsure about the extent of the threat. At the same time, we know about the implications of Exxon when it comes to sowing disinformation about climate change. This is what they were doing in the 90s while he was working there. And he was questioning this as well. When people asked, well, what do you know about the fact, what do you know about the fact that Exxon, as you were working there, was paying climate scientists to produce false information and muddy the waters regarding climate science? The same thing that the tobacco industry was doing to muddy the waters around the link between cigarette smoking and lung cancer, which they were eventually sued for and eventually were forced to pay money for. And again, this was another, vague money answer that no one really understood. I don't really know. It's like, how could someone be running for? How could someone be an appointee for the cabinet of the state, but he knows so little about the world? Like he knows so little about climate science. And he represents such a large threat to the world as a result. And he comes out with, the Pentagon doesn't really think it's a national security threat. Like, yes, they do. Like, yes, they do.
The fact that we're even asking your Secretary of State about climate change is amazing. Because remember last year when Bernie mentioned climate change, as a thing, not just an environmental thing, but as a security concern, folks scoffed and laughed at him, but it really is a serious issue. And like you said, having someone who has this experience, who should be able to give a better, more reasonable responses, who helped prep you? Like, you should have known, some of these questions would be issues and there should be a much stronger response. But the problem is, no matter how poor the responses are, I don't see him not getting confirmed.
A lot. Of course,
it's just gonna be a dragged out process.
Absolutely, because a lot of this is just theater. Like, let's be honest, a lot of this is just theater for the Democrats to pretend as though they are holding people accountable, and that's what Cory Booker was up there doing. He was like, oh my gosh, watch me grill these people. I'm gonna roast these guys. I'm gonna roast them. And at the end, he's just like, oh well, I'm sure you'll be confirmed eventually. Look forward to working with you. It's just and that's that kind of duplicitousness that we have to confront as people who are not in politics, or rather who are not in the government. This sort of, with one hand on one side, out of one side of their mouth, they're putting on this large performance for their base. Look how progressive Cory Booker is. Cory Wall Street Booker is. Look how progressive he is. Like he's really roasting that avowed KKK member. Like he's the bravest. It's like, no, come on. These are low hanging fruits. Like, these are the low hanging fruits of our systemic issues. People like Jeff Sessions. And it comes down to, well, can we count on Cory Booker to, when the chips are down, to also oppose Chuck Schumer? Can we count on him to also oppose Betsy DeVos? Or, well, he didn't oppose Elaine Chao because Elaine Chao kind of cruised through. Like, can we count on the Congressional Black Caucus? Because where were they when Black wealth was actually, plummeting over Obama? They were nowhere, because that's not going to earn them any points.
Well, it's also because we don't require it, right? Like you said, it's not going to earn them points, but we don't require it. And it is so easy to everybody pile on because this is the bad thing and we all got to renounce the bad thing. But it does take a certain unique sense of not just courage, but conviction to be able to stand on one's 2 feet, to stand for the lesser known or lesser supported issues that are out there. And again, at this point, we're talking about people, even the difference of just asking questions, because even when we go back to the Rush stuff, it's just asking questions. Like the idea of asking a question and questioning the judgment and the sanctity of these institutions is like blasphemy. You can't do that, except for, you know, the different ways, my speech, other stuff, I can. And we have every right to ask these questions. We have every right to demand, you know, folks, contact your senators, contact those on the hearing committee. Make sure people understand what your position is, what your points are, and why. Like, it's just so wild what's going on right now.
Absolutely. A really good example of this is the Tillerson line of questioning. That was the point in which, like, people were, I'm sorry, not to Tillerson. Yes, it was Tillerson. I get a little bit confused about this. When people sort of were a bit lukewarm about it. No, I'm sorry. Again, Tillerson refused to speak out about the Philippines, the president of the Philippines, Duterte. And people were sort of aghast about that. Obviously the president of the Philippines is completely out of his mind. Let's put it out that way. His drug war is killing hundreds of thousands of people. But then you have someone like John Kelly, who's getting up for the Department of Homeland Security, and he's praising the drug war in South America. Like, he's praising the drug war that's going on in South America. And he's praising it, and it's just as brutal. And it is just as brutal and just as inhumane as the drug war going on in the Philippines. And it's this hypocrisy here. This idea that, well, this drug war in the Philippines is a problem, but the drug war in South America is not because of reasons.
No, I'm still here. No, I'm still here. Yeah, I just, while Brandon was talking, I just dropped out for a hot second. Gotta facilitate the little folks in the background. Well, they're not so little, but anyway. But no, absolutely agree. I mean, there really does need to be. We talk about the resistance, right? But it's fallen down on the job. Like, it's not doing what it should be doing. It's not just about resisting against Trump. It's about, we really need to be talking about this entire system and the way in which institutions and individuals have compromised, the sanctity of our democracy and pushing forward. And then we look at someone like a David Brock, right? For example, David Brock, who is, for whatever reason, trying to wield his power and influence wants to come help our side, so to speak, because we got to fight Trump. It's
we have to resist Trump. We have to resist. We have to resist Trump.
We have to resist.
We have to resist. We have to resist. We are resisting Trump. Resist, period. Because we are the resistance, led by Keith Olbermann of GQ. God, ugh. Anyway,
and
no, but
huh?
Oh, and David Brock and Neera. I could not think of three people I'd like to lead me more than those three. David Brock, an avowed, but conservative. What you call him? Besides a dick bag. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, but this is the thing. The Democrats are getting in bed with basically everyone, like anyone and everyone. The Democrats are getting in anyone and everyone who are indicative of the system that led to Trump. And they just don't see that. Do not see that the people who, like, the systems and structures and people they are getting in bed with are exactly the reason why we have Trump. And like there is no growth here. Like, there is no growth within this party. There is, you have people online who are simultaneously saying, I don't want to re-legislate the primary, but these Bernie bros are still, like, I thought we weren't re-legislating the primary. Like, at what point do we say that the Democratic Party is the anathema to growth? They can't do it. Like, they can't learn their lesson, because the lesson that the establishment needs to learn is that no one likes you and that you're failures. And
yeah,
that's a powerful lesson. It's a powerful lesson to have to teach somebody.
I mean, yeah, that's true. We don't want to have to relitigate the primaries, but it just seems like even now and still, instead of looking at the entire playing field and all the different issues that happen, it's still absolutely Bernie's fault. Bernie's trash and hasn't done anything. And this is not me. This is, narratives that's put out by people. And the Bernie bros, the white male Bernie bros that only care about liberal, they're the only ones that care about things like income inequality, right? Like that's
what happens when you have the resistance led by rich people. They'll simply define their problems by rich people problems, and I simply can't understand how people are still falling for this. I don't understand how these people are still being elevated to these positions of leadership. David Brock, they're going to let David Brock back in with open arms. They are. He's going to be allowed back in with open arms. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to be publicly shamed. Neither is Neera Tanden. They're going to be back. They're going to be here for the long haul. Probably with a nice cushy.
Hey, John.
Hey, guys.
How are you?
Oh, good. Just had a nice dinner, and now I'm sitting down with you guys. Yeah, they probably don't know me except from the DNC last year.
Yeah.
Go ahead, David. David's going to introduce John.
So since we're a little bit out of sync tonight, folks, I'm sorry. But I'm in the background here producing as usual, and joining us is the person infamously known as Alexander the Met on Twitter. But we'll be referring to him as John tonight, and he was going to join us to just kind of bash Brock a little bit.
Yeah, it was really interesting what you just said about Brock being welcomed with open arms. I fully expect, Keith to retweet the letter anytime now, and they're just going to, like you said, they're going to welcome him back. They're going to give him an organization, and he's going to lead the resistance. And he's already got people in the messaging war room that are ex-staffers of his and Hillary's that he handpicked. So, I mean, what's to stop him? This is not going to change, and we're seeing the signs clear as day that none of this is going to change. And Brock is an infestation that would need to change if we were going to make some real progress and headway. But since he's not going to be removed, you can see clear as day that it's just not going to change.
Absolutely. And the issue is that Trump, this is the problem with only fighting monsters, right? This is the problem with only attacking the excesses of the system. This is the problem with people who get away with that knowledge. So we have in Trump, in Jeff Sessions, and to a lesser extent in Pedersen, and basically the entire cabinet. Let's be honest. Trump's cabinet is basically a Legion of Doom from the old Justice League cartoons, in Justice League. I don't know. I'm too young for that show, but they provide convenient scapegoats for why Brock is not so bad, why he needs to be let back in. Although he's not really good at his job. Let's be honest. He kind of wasted that $1 million he was given, but it is what it is. And the Democrats will never ever turn that eye back on themselves. Like I'm waiting for Cory Booker to come in and go, Jeff Sessions, you're a piece of, you're not a nice person. I'm going to fight your confirmation with every last breath I have. And then when you're not confirmed, I'm going to go into my own party and eject the neoliberals out too. Because yes, we do have a monster at the door. We do have barbarians at the gates, but we also have an infestation within our own town. And that is the problem here. The Democrats are just going to use this. It's going to be Jeff Sessions is the real enemy. We can't re-legislate the primary. We can't focus on Chuck Schumer because he's an ally against Trump. And then in 2020, they're going to run, oh God, I guess Cory Booker. And we're going to lose again.
Yeah, that's what today was all about. I mean, you saw him up there today giving his little testimony, and they were basically just prepping him to run. You saw everyone tweeting about the video and everything. It was just prep for Cory Booker.
Yeah, Cory Booker is making it set up for 2020 run. I think that's all this is. This is a performance so that he can say he came out and against Jeff Sessions. He showed great bravery when everyone was already saying that Jeff Sessions was a slime and he should be opposed. This is the ultimate cowardice, right? This is the ultimate cowardice. This is kind of worse than doing nothing, because this is almost as bad, because this is, you're only willing to do something when everyone agrees opposing is a problem. That's when you gain the courage to fight. When the thing you're opposing is literally so bad that 100% of people, not 100%, but 90% of people agree that, yeah, this should be opposed.
And what's a counterpoint to that is that I'm hearing reports that the Elaine Chao confirmation hearings was all smiles and laughs. She's all for privatization too. But all the privatization Democrats on the neoliberal side were all joking around with her and letting her breeze through.
Well, at this point, privatization has been completely normalized, right? Privatization, this was the ultimate goal of, this is the ultimate result of the Reaganism, the neoliberalism of what Reagan and Clinton did. The private market has the solution to every problem. There's nothing that the public sector can do that the private sector can't do better, including educate our kids. And so the idea that we would fight the idea that the Democrats would fight privatization is gone now, right? Like they don't need to fight it. Like this privatization is just here to stay for them. There's nothing to be gained politically by fighting privatization, because that's kind of a lost battle. And this is one of those things that I warn about when I talk about, well, yes, we can't normalize Trump. Absolutely. We have to fight Trump being normalized. And it appears that with Megyn Kelly and Gretchen Van Susteren going to MSNBC and Joe Scarborough already being there, that the dangers of normalizing Trump exist. They do exist, but in not normalizing Trump, we also can't come out and use Trump to absolve Obama. And that's one of the really disgusting things we have going on here. And that was one of the disgusting things we saw going on last night. You have last night, I think someone screamed "No more drones" or some kind of protest chant, and they were drowned out by 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years. And it's just really, it's people cannot seem to understand that when you're dealing with the lesser of two evils, the less evil option is not good. It's just simply less evil. But under this sort of mentality, it becomes, well, the less evil option is good. Like it's the good option. It's not only the objectively good option, it's the subjectively good option. And so now you have people who are basically already nostalgic for Obama. And we talk about this all the time. You have people who are nostalgic for a neoliberal because they are so desperate to escape neo-fascist policies. And how do we get to the point where people's critical thinking skills are so poor that they don't see that one leads to the other? And then not only that, they don't even recognize some of the fascism that existed under Obama as fascism, simply because he didn't use those words. But when you have private and public police working together to suppress protesters in North Dakota, that's fascism. It's not heavy fascism, but it's fascism light, definitely. And we have to start having this conversation of, the solution to neo-fascism is not more neoliberalism. The solution to Trump, who represents an excess of a neoliberal system, neo-fascism, an excess of the racist system by being a complete dick, a complete sexist dick who, at the very least, he has professed to be comfortable, or has used language that would lead me to be comfortable, that he is okay with sexually assaulting women. And whether he has done it or not, which it appears that he has used that language. And so he is in excess of this sexist structure that exists in our society. But he's in excess. At what point do we get down to the nitty gritty and start tackling the underlying problem?
Yeah, and to speak to that neo-fascism under Obama, I mean, the Supreme Court justice he put forward, Merrick Garland, ruled to suspend habeas corpus in order to put people away in Gitmo. I mean, this was something that was widely reported on, but no one really cared. And now all of a sudden, Trump's talking about the same stuff, and it's now like, oh my God, we need to fight this. We need to fight it then too. It always needs to be fought. And like you said, the way to fight Trump is not with neoliberalism.
Yeah, and the way to resist Trump is certainly not by remembering Obama fondly. Like, the way to resist Trump is to, rather, we don't need to resist Trump. We need to fight Trump, definitely. We need to actively, resistance is a reactive thing. We need to go out into the streets and fight Trump. We need to be proactive. We've been reactive for too long. That's how we got here. Like that's how we got here, because the Republicans have largely been a proactive party, and the Democrats, in their weakness, have been a reactive party. So I'm not in favor of reacting anymore. We don't need to resist. We need to fight. Struggle. We need to go out there and punch Nazis in the face. You know, call them Nazis. Don't call them alt-right. Call them Nazis. We don't have a difference of opinion. You're a Nazi and I'm not. That's not difference of opinion. But yeah, so the way to fight Trump, the way to prevent Trump was, again, 30 years ago. But the first thing we need to do is we need to understand how we got here. We need to understand that Trump is not an anomaly. That Trump did not come about as an anomaly of the system. He came about as its most logical conclusion. And that's why this whole nostalgia over Clinton, you have people who are heartbroken over Clinton. And, I enjoyed Meryl Streep's speech. I thought it was very nice. I thought it was very emotional. And I thought it was very, moving. I thought it was very moving. But you have people who are heartbroken over the fact that Clinton lost. And it's like, Trump won. But it's like, come on, if Clinton had won, let's be honest, it would have been Ted Cruz 2020. Because Clinton didn't offer anything. Clinton didn't offer a solution to neo-fascism. Clinton offered an alternative to Trump. It's just like that, she offered a different kind of fascism that was a bit more polite. And I think it's, we have to engage with it. Maybe it's not, honestly, I'm not a purist, so calling it fascism to me is a bit wishy-washy, but it's definitely not something I would want to live under. So how do we move past this conversation? How do we start having the conversation about, okay, well, yes, we got to deal with Trump, but we can't, it's not either or. It's not only dealing with Trump. It's also, we got to deal with Chuck Schumer. We got to deal with Nancy Pelosi. We got to deal with Steny Hoyer. We got to deal with the Congressional Black Caucus too. Let's be honest. They're no prize pigs. And we have to deal with Cory Booker. Cory Booker is indicative of a problem. Liberals standing up neo-fascists and like advocating for themselves as a solution to them.
Hey, Cory Booker sat on a board of a school privatization organization with Davos. So he's not going to resist her. He's not going to say anything about her. He's not going to testify about her at her confirmation hearing.
Oh, definitely. Because if anything, Wall Street and the charter school the school privatization industry are lockstep in New York City. Absolutely. There are plenty of lobbying firms in New York City who lobby to have privatization occur, or to have charter schools expanded in New York City that just are funded by hedge funds. They're just absolutely funded. He's not going to stand up to Betsy DeVos. We were talking about this before you came on. He's not going to be there because there is no political capital there. There is no capital there for him to gain by standing up to her, and that's what makes him a coward.
Yep, and this is they're going to be put forward for the nomination next time around. And, it gets back to Brock. It's the same people, and this whole resistance thing, it's the same people just rebranding themselves so that they don't have to look, which is where this whole Russia thing comes from, and everything that we're seeing in the news it's garbage. It's rebranding so there's no introspection, so that there's no impetus to change the party. And that's got to come from us. But what do we do? I mean, what we just saw in California was phenomenal, where at the local level they're starting to make some changes, but at the same time, how do we make that go into a national point? Like, how do we push that forward and organize to the point so that we're not just taking over the local level so that maybe by 2020 we have a little bit more of a progressive party? Do we do the Dem enter and continue to do the local level organization for the Democratic Party to make it more progressive and hope that maybe they listen to us in 2020? Or do we start something new?
Well, we talked about this last night as well. I think that the ultimate goal, so with goal versus method, the ultimate goal is to drive the Democrats, because they are undeniably a large party. A lot of people are Democrats. The goal is to drive Democrats to the left. The goal is to drive them back to the left, because the Republicans have been very, very successful in driving the Overton window in America to the right. They've been incredibly successful at that. And so,
well, I mean, I would argue that is not just the Republicans, but it was, the Clinton. I'm a fiscally conservative but socially liberal Democrat from that time period as well. They took the donors, they took a portion of the base. So in order to collect an equal-sized portion of the base, the Republicans went right, which helped to shift the Overton window to the right. They went way far right, further right than even Reagan did when he was courting the the religious right went on his run, but at the same time, both parties have been successfully pushing this country to the right since Clinton.
Well, absolutely. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. The Democrats since Carter have also been shifting to the right. They've had different excuses for why they are shifting to the right. Of course, Bill Clinton was famous for his triangulation, and he would speak to the left, and then the way he got popular was he would make promises to the left, and then he would renege on them for the right, and that was how he sort of maintained that popularity. Because he spoke nice progressive words to the left, and then he would immediately drop those promises. And
triangulation.
Yeah, triangulation. And so we got to this point where now people are seeing the results of this kind of separation between the class and the race, or the class and the identity, the factors, the other identity factors. So we say what occurs when you are economically conservative, quote unquote, but socially liberal, and why that doesn't actually work. And the reason why it doesn't actually work is because as economics go to the right, so do social things. It's like you can't, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. You can't have a society that is economically conservative but socially liberal in the way you think you can, because ultimately what occurs is that the most vulnerable populations are taking advantage of the worst by a conservative economy. Like the most vulnerable populations, the ones that you profess to care about, the women of color, indigenous populations, the handicapped, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They are the ones who find themselves overburdened by the economic conservatism. So all you end up doing is saying nice, pretty words to them while their lives are left in shambles. And then you wonder why they don't vote for you. You wonder why your social liberalism is not enough.
There's no integrity to your message, and when people cannot believe your message, they're not going to believe you're going to do what they're promising. So no one's going to come out, no one's going to rally, no one's going to go to the rallies, no one's going to organize door knocking. I mean, you guys were working, I'm sure some of you were working for Bernie on a day-to-day basis. I knocked doors. I hardly ever saw any Hillary Clinton door knockers. When I was out going to rallies in Rhode Island, I saw, I think it was 10,000 people for Bernie, and there was less than 800 for Hillary. When no one believes your message, they're not going to get off their ass to do anything.
I don't know. It's hard for me to re-legislate this primary. Like, I know people call for this kind of that people want a post-mortem on what occurred even now, 3 months later. 3 months later from what occurred. But it's so hard when you talk about Hillary Clinton. It's so hard to pinpoint exactly what made her lose, because there were so many things. Yeah. Some of them illegitimate and some of them legitimate. Her personality was a big part of it, but also her track record and stuff like that. And when it comes down to it, let's go back to your original question. Do we want something new, or do we want to work within the Democratic Party? I don't know the answer to that. I know what the goal is, though. The goal is to shift the Overton window back to left. The goal is to explain to people that economic conservatism and being socially liberal but economic conservative does not work at the national level. It may work in your little ascriptive bubble. It may work when you're making 120K and all your friends are making 120K, and you have friends of color who make 120K, you have LGBTQ friends who make 120K, and so your entire friend group is a horizontal slice of society. Maybe it works then, but at the national level, it simply doesn't work. And I think that's why that's the bubble that we're talking about here. This notion that you can actually have social mobility and social equity and move towards social equity without a progressive economic message. And so the question you asked, well, do we work from the inside or work from the outside? I don't know. We talk about this all the time, and I feel like I'm a broken record because the goal is to shift Democrats to the left, as I said. But I think that the Democratic Party, the structure of the party, what the party demands from you, not only these performances, because let's talk about Cory Booker's performance today, or Bernie Sanders paying lip service to Russia yesterday, or Keith Ellison paying lip service to the whole Hillary Clinton Russia thing, or Russian bots, or whatever you want to talk. The demands in both ideology and performance are so high. They are just so high. You really do have to sell a little bit of your soul at every level you reach. That at a certain point, when you get to the top, what do you have left? Maybe it's better to push people from the outside. Maybe it's better to just keep your soul and struggle on the outside to demand, form a progressive coalition and just be purist. Like they say, we need a left tea party. We need a group of people who are not afraid to primary Democrats who don't do what they're supposed to do. We need a group of people out there who are absolutely purist, who are absolutely taking moral red lines in the sand. Oh, what's that? You have David Brock in your party? Well, I'm sorry. In the 1990s, David Brock wrote a character assassination of a sexually assaulted woman. That's a no-go. I can't support you because you work with David Brock. We need people who will say that. We need people who will say that and who will not be immediately called childish or irresponsible or cajoled by this Democratic elite who just, I hate to be crass and vulgar, but it's all me tonight, guys. So I might as well be who get their rocks off by being adults. Oh God, do the Democrats love to be the mature? Whether you're watching Bill Maher or whether you're watching Sarah Silverman or Al Franken or any of these people who espouse that, they tell you about they tell you how progressive they are. But then when you actually try to engage in some real leftist politics, they go, that's childish. That's immature. Nah. Like we have to be willing to compromise. We have to be willing to, come out there and be in favor of what the Republicans want. It's like, no, I'm actually in favor of a little bit of purist in my politics. I want a little bit of purism in my politics, and I also want, childishly, I want my Democratic representatives to hate the Republicans. Like I want them to not be friends with them. I want them to have a working relationship. Like I wish that Harry Reid hated Mitch McConnell. Like actually, I wish that a picture of Cory Booker hanging out with Donald Trump didn't come out earlier today, where it's just like, we're just friends. It's like, no, I want you to hate each other. I want you to have a blood feud like the Capulets and the Montagues.
I mean, your action should match your rhetoric at the very least. I mean, when you're talking about this being treason and you're putting out things that are saying that Trump is going to bring back the Nazi Party, why are you normalizing his children and hanging out with all the people that supported him? It's hypocrisy, and you can't do that. Have integrity of your message and make people believe you and vote for you, like we just said. So I see where you're coming from. I don't necessarily think that every single person whose ideology differs from yours deserves that type of treatment, but people like Trump and Jeff Sessions definitely do.
Oh no, I agree. So don't get me wrong. And I think that this is a great point that you just made. Not everyone who disagrees with you should be. I'm not in favor of keeping people in the shadows. I think that's why we have what we have now. I think that the Democrats, like I said before, the Democrats' position on racism and sexism and whatever is that it's okay if it exists in these little populations in the South. It's okay if it exists in these poor areas. It's okay if it's, kind of the undercurrent of society. It's kind of just like undercurrent and the structure of society. It's okay there. And we won't, in our own racism and sexism and whatever, we won't call racism and sexism. Like that's the Klan. They're going extinct. Like they don't exist anymore. There's only like 1,000 of them. It's like, no, the Klan as we know it may not exist the way it used to. But there was a great interview with the ex-Klansman or ex-neo-Nazi on CNN a while ago, whose name I cannot remember, where he actually came out and said, he's like, honestly, what happened to the Klan, what happened to a lot of neo-Nazis who are a little bit older now is that they got older, they had kids, their kids were embarrassed by them. And so their ideology didn't quote unquote change, it just became more polite. And so, like your Klansmen, a lot of them, I hate to say it because this is rude, they became Tea Partiers, for lack of a better word. They still practice radical right wing politics, but they just got rid of.
As evidenced by Ben and my visit to the Tea Party in Massachusetts, the ideas that were normalized and what they considered to be, normal behavior of racism was shocking, honestly, but not shocking. You know what I mean? It was like they kept saying over and over again. I don't know if you guys listened to that conversation. Like, we're just sick of talking about race. And, they are talking to Ben, and Ben goes, well, some of us are sick of living it. And it was kind of made them think for a moment, but only for that moment. That little deep moment penetrated, and then it was washed away by, the constant stream of racism that they've basically been indoctrinated into. And so while, like you said, the KKK might not exist, the problems that the KKK were fostering, and the ideology is still there.
Exactly, and this is what I was going to say about the Democratic Party. They have been so clumsy and so specific in their definition of racism. They, like in winning the culture war, they feel inclined, or rather, they feel privileged to, define racism for the world. They want to define racism. They want to define sexism. They want to, point the finger at the Republican Party. Largely Democrats have tried their best to make racism and sexism essential qualities of certain groups of people based on geography, based on skin color, based on economic status. And so they've created this narrative for themselves in their own bubble that makes themselves feel good, that the only racists out there are these quote unquote poor Southern white males. These is it cis or psi? I never know. This is really bad because I should know. But that these straight hetero Christian males, they're the racists. Everyone else gets kind of a blank pass, and they've yet to turn that sort of mirror on themselves. Like, okay, well, we have very problematic elements of our own party here, and just because we're defining racism for ourselves to make in our own bubble to make ourselves feel good, doesn't mean that our definition of racism is trickling out and making other people feel better about the way society is actually functioning. So yeah, they might have done their best to define racism for the world, but it has done little to soften the impact of racist politics and policies.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 11 Democrats in South Carolina supported HB2.
Oh yeah, and HB2 wasn't just a anti-trans person bill; it was also an anti-worker bill.
Yep.
So it's a really complicated
policy
thing.
that, like, if the Democratic Party came out as a whole and said, hard red line, if you vote for any policies like this or right to work, you are no longer allowed in our party. That I can get behind, and that would be something that I would go to bat for them for.
Yeah, and see, and that's what I wanted too. I want the Democrats to take some real hard red lines in their politics. I want them to say, listen, if you're in favor of right to work, you're out of here. Like if you're in favor of, if you're not in favor of gay marriage vocally, you're out of here. Like if you're not in favor of $15 minimum wage, you're out of here. Like you're out of here. Like I'm sorry. Like you can't ride this train. You're too short to ride this ride. To get on this ride. But the Democratic Party can't afford to do that because so many people in democratic structure are not in favor of those things. And what they want to do is, they want to pettifog. They want to pettifog over the definition of racism, even though a lot of these definitions that they're trying to mobilize have no effect on real people's lives. And so it just becomes this problem where they're trying to define everyone's problem for them. And you see this online all the time. You see these people who are ostensibly organizers in political pundits and people who are ostensibly paid to have good ideas and tell them to people and organize them and connect with people, who are essentially getting online and telling people their problems. Was it Sally Albright got on Twitter today and explained how economic inequality was only a problem for the white man? And I was like, what the hell is this? Don't you get paid for?
Sally Albright used to work for Newt Gingrich before she worked for Hillary, and before that she worked for a lobbying group for a mining company. She's not exactly the progressive spokesperson. She shouldn't even have been on Hillary Clinton's team.
But none of them are progressive, and that's the thing. The Democratic establishment is not particularly progressive. They are not. Sally Albright is a good example of that. And H2 and the quote unquote bathroom bill in North Carolina is the best analog for the Democratic Party in their priorities that has ever existed. You have this bill that is full of anti-worker of regulation. You have this bill that's anti-union, that's anti a lot of things. But the part that the Democrat elite focus on, the Democrat establishment media focus on, transgender people can't go to the same bathroom. It's like, yes, that is a deal. Not the biggest deal in that bill, though. But they feel very comfortable in telling people what the big deal is.
Yeah. Messaging is completely off, and it never matches up with the action.
Oh yeah, they never matched up with their action. They did talk about race. They talk about Jeff Sessions, but Sean King and Sean King. I like Sean King's work sometimes. I think that he does a good service to the peoples. But on Twitter, he pointed out that, let's be honest, all of these white Democratic senators and espousing their love of the black man, quote unquote, none of them actually have black staffers.
Yeah, I saw that.
None of them have people of color. The only people who have people of color staff are the Republicans. And like, it's frustrating. It's frustrating watching them talk out of one side of their mouth and act out the other, because one of the questions becomes like, well, are they stupid or do you think we are? It's like, how stupid do they think we are? It's like, how stupid did the Democratic Party think that the voter was, that they could get these things past us? And the answer is that they think that we're pretty stupid. They think that I have the sneaking suspicion that the Democratic Party thinks that people are voting for them because they like them and not because they're being held hostage. And that's the saddest part. I think that they might have convinced themselves that people actually like their policies and that people care about them and people like Hillary Clinton when a large part of the population was being held hostage by her. Like the Democratic Party holds, I would say, decent people hostage.
Yeah.
But there's this narrative that exists. The Democrats are winning, man. The Democrats, they've won something. They're always winning. They can't stop winning. They're at this point.
I've seen so many state losses, so many governorships lost. I mean, what are we, 2 states away from them calling up for a constitutional convention?
No. That's not what I mean by winning. I know that under Obama, they lost record numbers of seats all over the place. Governorships, state legislatures, Senate seats, had the House. I'm assuming they also lost bake sales.
I think I know where you're going, but that time, all of that, the House losses, the Senate losses, the seat losses, the legislative power losses, tie directly into the culture rhetoric that they're talking about, because a lot of that culture rhetoric is enforced by laws, and those laws are no longer going to be upheld. They're no longer going to be passed when they're needed. And like HB2, we're going to see laws that are directly against the message of the Democratic Party being passed in states. So now you'll have Pyrrhic victories where you say, okay, we're going to repeal HB2, but we're just going to get rid of the trans part. We're never going to get rid of the anti-worker portions of the bill.
But that's the thing, and I was being a little bit flippant about you saying that Democratic parties are losers. And I agree, but they have so cleverly redefined winning for their own elite base that they've created this Ponzi scheme, which is what it is. It's a Ponzi scheme. Like, they have established the bar so low that like these points of victory, like they just move the goalposts. Like, oh well, we lost all these seats, but we had a black president. He was cool. He could shoot a great J. It's like that. Like, that's the victory of the past 8 years. Forget the expansion of the drone war. Forget the fact that we're bombing 7 countries or 9. I think it's 7. I'm sorry, that's my smart record. I know off the top of my head, but shame on people for doing it. But I should know off the top of my head.
It was 26,000 bombs dropped in 2016 on 7 countries, roughly 3 hours every day for 24/7 the past year.
The Democrats have conditioned the Democratic voter to believe that these very, very small symbolic victories, as defined by the culture war, having a black president, nominating a woman, having a quote unquote diverse whatever party, paying lip service to the problems of minorities, being socially liberal but economic conservatives, is winning. Even as they lose record numbers of seats, even as they lose amazing amounts of power, even as the economy tanks, even as all these things happen, the Democrats still feel like winners because they adopt this sort of very elite intellectual smugness that, well, we might be losing everything. We might have lost the presidency, but we're smarter than they are. Like, look at Donald Trump with his fake tan and his weird hair. Like, we're so much smarter than them. So really, the real victory is, like, who cares? It's like, come on, guys. It's like, the game is up. People are asking this question, like, do we want to, like, are we integrating ourselves into a burning house by trying to work with the Democratic Party? No, guys. The house burned down 20 years ago. Sorry to inform you, but the Democratic Party, as a structure that's worthy of being inside of, as a house, it's no longer on fire. It burned down with Clinton. Clinton burned it down. And now
instead of
what we're
the
what we're
Democratic
becoming
Party now living in a
what
Go
we're
ahead.
becoming acutely aware of now that Obama's gone, now that Obama's no longer the cool person in the White House, and this is not an advocacy for Trump, obviously, but what we're becoming aware of that now that Obama's gone and Clinton is not going to be in there, even if Clinton had been in there, is that the illusion is gone, and now people are seeing that the Democratic Party is it's an empty, it's a burned out shell. It's a burned out shell of what it used to be, and all that is left is lip service to FDR, lip service to JFK, like all of these lofty ideals that are devoid of actual action when it comes down to it. And like they don't ever do anything. And people are wising up. The Democratic Party is an empty promise. The Democratic Party positions itself like as this as like the last line of defense from between the American people, an American oppressed classes, and the Republican Party, but they are woefully inept at actually fighting them because they don't actually try. And the thing that they should fight them on, they don't. And the things that don't actually matter so much, they fight them half-heartedly. But like, what can you do? Like, the Democratic Party is a burnt out husk of its former self. They at this point it becomes a question of whether it's worth rebuilding a house or building a new one. But like no one should live under the delusion that the Democratic Party is a functioning party that people are really that is worthwhile in terms of working within. They have it's not this is a decision between whether you want to build a new house from scratch or do you want to rebuild a burned down house.
Yeah, and I'm all for building a house from scratch, honestly, but it will take longer than 2020, and I think that what we're going to see with these people that he's putting in power is that we're going to be in dire straits by 2020, and we're going to be left with a crap choice again.
Don't get me wrong, John. I'm not one of those people who's saying like, let's start a third party and we'll have people ready by 2018 or 2020 or 2024. No. I'm just saying that, hey, you know what? The time to build a third party was like 30 years ago. So we should probably start now, so that in 2050 we might have a chance. And we're not looking. My whole thing is that the idea that something will take a long time is not an excuse not to do it. But people often use it as that. And people often point to the difficulty in changing the trajectory of a system, how long it will take, and use that as a justification for not doing it. Well, that just means start now. Like, we got to start now. And whether that means taking over the Democratic Party, which will also take a long time, it's going to take a long time to actually take over the Democratic Party. And it looks like 2020 is a done deal because they're going to put Cory Booker up. Like, I would be surprised if Cory Booker was not being put up in 2020. I'd be very surprised.
And I would be too, but I actually think depending on how Trump governs and depending on what he actually accomplishes, Cory Booker could win. It's just that he's not the win that we want. And he's not the win that the Democratic Party needs in order to move forward to gain all those seats that they lost in the House, in the Senate, in the state legislatures, in the governorships. Cory Booker won't give them that. He might give them a national level win, and that's a big might. But he won't give us the win to get the power back to allow for progressive values to become normalized again.
Yeah, we've gone an hour. I'm sorry that Anoa had to drop out. If you hadn't noticed, Anoa had the plan for the night, but she had to leave. It happens sometimes. So I was kind of just going off the top of my head. I apologize for that. I rambled a bit, but thank you, John, for joining us for this conversation. Closing words. Please follow me on Twitter at Pretty Bad Lefty. And David Brock is a scumbag, and he should be excommunicated from any place that has even the mildest amount of pride and self-respect.
Political ice flow is how I like to put them. David Brock needs to be put out on a political ice flow.
He should go hiking with Hillary Clinton.
Well, this is David back in the production room back here, and I just wanted to say goodnight to everybody. You can follow John at Alexander the Met. I think there's a special character in there, right, John?
Yeah, ALEXAND3R the Met, THEMEH.
So we'll put that in the description in case anyone's curious. And Ben will be back tomorrow night. Good night, guys.
Good
Yeah,
night.
thank you.